Hi book lovers, welcome back to my channel. I have some fantastic romances to recommend today. I'm sharing some of my all-time favorite reverse harem, why choose romance books. If you don't know what this trope is, if you haven't discovered the wonder that is why choose, it's basically a romance where it's more than just two characters. They'll usually have one heroine who ends up with more than one guy. Typically it's like 3 or 4 guys. I feel like that's the average number of heroes in a typical reverse harem why choose romance, but there's a big range. Anyway, I have a bunch of my favorite reverse harem why choose romances to share today. These are all books and series that I love, that I highly recommend, and as always, if you have your own recommendations for me, please let me know. But let's get into it, starting off with the book that probably was the reason why I fell in love with reverse harem romances. The book that started it all for me was A Lady of Rooksgrave Manor by Kathryn Moon. And yes, the book that made me fall in love with this whole trope was a monster romance. This was my very first Kathryn Moon read and I was amazed by it. It's like a historical paranormal romance with one heroine and 5 guys, and all of these guys are some type of monstrous creature. The most normal one is a vampire, but there's also a sphinx shifter, a golem, a marble golem, a monster hero that's like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, and there is a literal invisible man. So there's a lot of different creatures in this book, in this whole world, and it's pretty much pure monster smut, so I was living for it. All of these heroes absolutely adore and worship the heroine. She is human and she finds work at Rooksgrave Manor, which is pretty much a place where monsters can find companionship in one way or another. I loved getting to know all these different heroes, their little monster quirks about them, and the heroine was so good to them because even though she is human and she had no idea that monsters even existed, she adored them the way they were. There is a bit of a plot to this. It gets a little bit suspenseful, but honestly, if you read it, you are there for the monster smut. So this is a hot and fun read, definitely one of my favorites when it comes to both reverse harem and monster romances. Another author who is high up there in getting me to fall in love with these kinds of books is Tate James. I'm recommending 3 of her series because I love them all and I can't just choose one. So first up is her Madison Kate series, the one that I started with. I remember finding the audiobooks for the first 2 books in the series at my library, and as soon as I finished those 2, I immediately went to go download the ebooks of books 3 and 4 because I just could not wait for my library to get the rest of the series. I was so hooked, so addicted because the series is so good. This is like a dark-ish new adult romance series. We have Madison Kate, the heroine, and her 3 heroes. The premise of the series is kind of wild. So the heroine, she was set up, she got arrested, and people thought she got murdered, but she was actually sent away and now she's back home. And the 3 guys that ruined her life that awful night are living in her house. She hates them, she wants revenge against them, and the romance is just so intense and hot. There's so much chemistry between all 3 guys, and of course, like the typical why choose romance, there's always that one guy who hates the heroine a lot more than the others. He's the fighter hero, but I loved all 3 guys. I love how Tate James always writes such unique guys, like they're not interchangeable. They all have their own sort of romance that develops with the heroine, and Tate James always writes such kick-ass heroines. I loved Madison Kate. So this is a fantastic series. There's 4 books here. Book 1 is Hate, book 2 is Liar, book 3 is Fake, and book 4 is Kate. I'm also recommending the spin-off of the Madison Kate series, which is the Hades series. So for this series, I thought Madison Kate was a fantastic heroine, but Hades kind of kicks Madison Kate's ass. The heroine here is literally the boss, the leader, the president of this gang. The series also gets a lot more dark and suspenseful, and you just can't put it down, especially with all the awful cliffhangers going on. There are also 3 heroes in this series. We have one who is the heroine's best friend, like her second in command. There's one who is a little bit older and a total grump, and there's my favorite who is a bit younger than the heroine, but he is a total sweetheart. They're all such different guys, but they work so perfectly well with Hades. So if you want to read the series, there are 4 books. Book 1 is Seventh Circle, book 2 is Anarchy, book 3 is Club 22, and the last book is Timber. And then my last Tate James recommendation for now is the next spin-off after Hades. This whole series, like all 3 series, are set in the Shadow Grove world. It's such a dark and extensive world, and I love the way that Tate James has created all these different stories in the city. But anyway, the third and final Shadow Grove recommendation that I have from Tate James is her Guild series, her Guild trilogy. This series is my favorite so far in this whole world. It was just so fun, so exciting to read, and very different from the first 2 books. Like, you think that Tate James has this formula where she writes 4 books with 1 heroine and 3 guys, but then she changes it up in the Guild trilogy. We get 3 books, 1 heroine, and 2 guys, and I am obsessed with them all. I love all 3 of these characters, and the heroine here, Dani, she is absolutely my top favorite heroine from Tate James. She is a stone cold killer. She is so cool. She's a mercenary who works for the Guild. One of the heroes also works for the Guild. That's how they know each other. And the second hero is their target on their newest mission. He's this dangerous arms dealer that they have to get close to so they can kill him, but obviously that does not happen. There's a lot of kidnapping that goes on in the series. Like, the heroine allows herself to be kidnapped to get close to the arms dealer, and it's so funny because she is having a great time during her kidnapping. She's basically amusing herself but also falling for her kidnapper, and then the other hero is trying to make sure that she stays alive. He's her partner for the mission, but what she doesn't know is that he is completely obsessed with her, and he always has been since they first met. This other hero, the one who works for the Guild, is basically a psychopath, and I love him. So the series is just so much fun to read. You fall in love with all 3 of these characters. It gets so funny but also super intense, full of action. I just love everything about these books. But if you want to know like the reading order for this, book 1 is Honey Trap, book 2 is Dead Drop, and then book 3 is Kill Order. Another one of my all-time favorite reverse harem romance series is the Dark Side series by Kristy Cunning. This one is a fantasy series. It's urban fantasy. It's got this incredible slow burn romance, so much action here, so many twists and turns. As soon as I picked up the first book, I could not put it down. I had to keep reading. I had to find out what the heck was going on. It's about this ghost girl heroine who has amnesia. She has no idea who she is or why she's a ghost, why she's invisible. The only thing going on for her is that she's haunting these 4 very dangerous, very hot guys. Eventually they're able to see her. They're the only ones who can see her, and that's when things get intense. They all try to figure out who she is, what she is. It gets so cool. Like, I was blown away by all the reveals that happen throughout the series. And like I said, it is slow burn. It's definitely more plot forward, and the romance slowly develops throughout all 4 books, but it's so worth it by the end. All these characters are fantastic. The heroine is ridiculous. She is so funny, so over the top, and you can't help but love her. So I loved everything about the series. I love the author's writing and storytelling. If you didn't know, Kristy Cunning is a pen name for St. Abbey and Sam Owens. She does have another reverse harem paranormal fantasy romance series that I need to finish, but this one highly recommend. And then I can't not include the series that had me in a chokehold last year. It's the Bonds That Tie series by Bree. The Bonds That Tie was my life last year. I originally wanted to read it because Bree was supposed to go to a Polycon last year, but unfortunately she couldn't make it. But by the time that I found out that she wasn't going, I was already knee deep into the series. It's a new adult paranormal romance series with such an interesting paranormal world. Each character in this world has a very unique power. Like, 2 of these heroes, Nox and North, my favorites, they have these cool shadow creature powers. I don't even know how to describe them, but I love it. And the way that they form relationships in this world is through pack bonds. The heroine has 5 bonds, but unfortunately, to protect them, she ran away from them, and since they had no idea the reason why she left them, they hate her and resent her for leaving. And now she's back, and they do make her life hell for a bit. It's got this enemies to lovers vibe, but you fall in love with each and every one of these heroes. My favorite is North. I just loved his daddy character, but they're all wonderful, and I love the development of their relationships with the heroine. I did really love this world. I thought it was so fascinating. There's this like evil villain that they have to destroy, and each book just gets more and more intense until the big build-up at the end. I love it. If you want to read it, there are 6 books in this series. Book 1 is Broken Bonds, Book 2 is Savage Bonds, Book 3 is Blood Bonds, Book 4 is Forced Bonds, Book 5 is Tragic Bonds, and Book 6 is Unbroken Bonds. I also have to recommend the Deception Duet by Kay Webster. This duet is a little bit different from your typical reverse harem romance because the 3 heroes are all related and they're all triplets. But don't worry, there's no sort of incest going on between the guys. They are all just about the heroine. But yeah, this duet was so good. I loved it. I absolutely adore the heroine and fell for her so much. She went through so many things here. If you read the Cinderella trilogy by Kay Webster, then you probably have already met these 3 heroes, the triplets. They were pretty awful in the Cinderella trilogy. I love that trilogy too, but they were bullies there. So I was very amazed and very impressed that Kay Webster was able to make me fall in love with them in their romance. In their duet, the triplets are working for this mafia uncle, but they want out from under him. Their final assignment so that they can get out is to infiltrate the heroine's family by getting close to her and getting some information about her father. What's super interesting about this is that the 3 guys, they all pretend to be one guy to get close to the heroine. There's a lot of lies, a lot of manipulation. I mean, it's a dark romance. So every time the heroine sees one of the heroes, she has no idea that they are 3 separate men. They kind of have different personalities, but she falls in love with all of them. The only thing that the heroes don't know though is that the heroine has this awful home life. Like, her father is abusive and awful, and she's just trying to protect her younger sister. So this heroine truly goes through the most here, not just, you know, with her father, her home life, but also with these 3 guys. But I still love the romance, okay? It was hot, it was intense. If you're intrigued by how triplets would work in a reverse harem romance, try this duet out. Book 1 is Triple Threat and Book 2 is Death Wish. Okay, so I know I've been recommending more dark reverse harem why choose romances, but I do have one that is pure contemporary. It's fun and fluffy and so sweet. It's Pucking Around by Emily Rath. This book was my very first read from Emily Rath, and I fell in love with her writing, and I definitely saw why so many people loved her books. It's a hockey why choose romance with 1 heroine and 3 guys. 2 of the guys are hockey players. One of them works for the team, and the heroine is the newest hire. She's the new physical therapist, and lucky her, she gets to fall in love with 3 very hot guys. The one who works with the team is her new neighbor. One of the hockey players is actually a guy she had a one-night stand with a few months prior. She just never got his number or his name after. And then the last guy, the other hockey player, is the biggest grump, and he's the goalie. This book is huge, it's very long, but it is so feel good. You fall in love with all of these characters, and I loved how each guy had a different sort of pace when it came to their romance with the heroine. We also do have some MM romance going on between 2 of the guys who are best friends. It's such a well-rounded group. Like, we have one hero who is a pure golden retriever who is instantly in love with the heroine right from the very beginning. We have a relationship that's more in the middle that takes a little bit longer to develop, and then of course the grump is the most reluctant one to join the group. They're all so great though. I love how they all love each other so much. They're all so good to each other, and the way that they adore each other just comes right off the pages. So if you're looking for a romance that is more on the lighthearted side, I can't recommend this enough. I also have an Omegaverse reverse harem recommendation. This is the Pack Darling series by Lola Rock. It's 2 books. We have Pack Darling Part 1 and Part 2. We have an Omega heroine who is forced to join this one pack who does not want her. They hate her, they make her life hell, but she stays so strong. This heroine has been through hell and back, and she's not gonna let these 5 guys bring her down. So the heroine is Omega. The pack with the guys, there are 4 alphas and 1 Omega. The reason why they don't want her is because they already have their Omega. What's great about this duet, what I love so much about it, is the fact that book 2 is basically just groveling. These guys mess up huge at the end of part 1, so they have a lot of making up to do in part 2. In part 2, they realize that she is their mate, she belongs with their pack, so they do everything they can to make her forgive them and love them. I love the angst. I love the way that the heroine makes all the guys work for her love. It's such a good duet. It's such a good world, and I'm honestly so impressed that this was like the author's very first published book. And finally, the last 2 series that I'm recommending are both by the same author. They're all set in the same sort of world. The first series, the OG series that started off this whole world, is the St. View High series by Elle Thorpe. The reason why I actually picked up this series, why I wanted to read it, was because the heroine shares my same name. I don't know why. Anytime I come across a Lacey in a romance, I want to read it. But yeah, this is a new adult high school reverse harem romance series, and it is a bully romance. But if you know me, you know that I don't actually like bully romances, so the fact that I enjoyed the series says a lot. So this series is set in high school at St. View High, which is in a very bad part of town. The heroine comes from privilege, but she decides to enroll in this school because her uncle was murdered and she's trying to find his murderer. The 3 heroes are like the bad boys of their school. They do try to make the heroine's life miserable, but I will admit, it wasn't like some awful bullying. It wasn't anything too intense or dark. Like, I've definitely read darker bully romances, so that's probably why I liked it so much, but still there is some light bullying. The way that all 3 guys fall so hard for her though was fantastic, and I love the whole suspense going on too with trying to find the real murderer. Elle Thorpe does suspense so well, so I loved this high school romance series. Like, the fact that I don't like bully romances and I don't really like to read books set in high school anymore, yet I still loved this series. It says a lot. So the 3 books in the series, book 1 is Devious Little Liars, book 2 is Dangerous Little Secrets, and book 3 is Twisted Little Truths. And then the final recommendation that I have for this video is a spin-off of the St. View High series. I'm recommending the St. View Prison series by Elle Thorpe. This trilogy is also set in St. View, where a lot of terrible things happen, like the heroine's sister getting murdered. So in this series, the heroine is trying to find her sister's killer. One of the heroes is actually the sister's ex who was framed for the murder. Another hero is a guy that the heroine knew back in high school who is the lawyer that she hires to help free the ex. And then the third and last hero is one of the prison guards at St. View Prison. This series gets intense. Like, it's set in a literal prison, so lots of things are going on here. It gets pretty wild, lots of twists and turns here. The suspense was even better than the one in St. View High. It gets a little bit more dark and gritty, and I highly recommend it. So if you want to read this series, book 1 is Locked Up Liars, book 2 is Solitary Sinners, and then book 3 is Fatal Felons. And that's it for some of my favorite why choose reverse harem romance books. Most of these are series because multiple books just work a bit better when it comes to so many characters in a romance, but there are some great exceptions like Pucking Around and Lady of Rooksgrave Manor. And like I said earlier, if you want to share your recommendations, please feel free to. I'm always on the lookout for more Why Choose books, but as always, links to everything will be down in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!